Welcome back to the Morgan Streetman Show. I'm your host, Morgan Streetman, and we're going over the dropping of the charges by the Department of Justice against General Flynn. And as Bill Barr said in his interview with Catherine Herridge, this is not going to be the end of it, and I hope it's not, because somebody needs to be held accountable for this. Now, there's a lot of little details we could give you, like Prosecutor Brandon Van Grack has been withdrawing from all of his DOJ cases, so there's something afoot there. In addition, he made active misrepresentations to Judge Emmett Sullivan. He's the judge sitting on the Flynn case. But Brandon Van Grack made active misrepresentations, like the fact that Flynn's lied to the FBI. And I'm putting air quotes. You can't see me, but I'm putting air quotes around that because there's really a question about whether Flynn lied or didn't lie in the first place. We don't think he lied. The agents that interviewed him, Peter Strzok and Supervisory Special Agent Joseph Pientka, both of them didn't think he lied, and that's what they reported, that he didn't lie. But remember, they had the transcript, so it's like playing a game of gotcha. You have a phone call, and 5 or 6 weeks later, or 4 weeks, whatever the number of weeks is, somebody comes in to quiz you on exactly what was said on the phone call, and they got the transcript of the phone call. And if you make a mistake, all of a sudden, you've lied to the FBI. Now, this is not a lie like Andrew McCabe, the deputy director, made to the FBI when he denied leaking stories to the New York Times repeatedly under oath after being warned that and plus the guy's a deputy director, like he doesn't know it's a crime to lie to the FBI during an active investigation, but he did it repeatedly. And this is all documented, but he was not prosecuted for that. Now we got General Flynn, who wasn't even warned, didn't remember something about a conversation several weeks before, and they're playing gotcha with the guy. It's a true perjury trap. But here's the important thing. None of this is new. We knew about all this. There's no new information that DOJ has just gotten about this. So don't miss that point. Yeah, they're finally dropping it, but we knew about this. Listen to John Ratcliffe. Now, he's up as nominee for Director of National Intelligence. And if you remember, his nomination was pulled last summer because the Republicans on the Senate Select Committee for Intelligence would not support him, including Richard Burr. But he's been renominated by the president this year. But listen to what he had to say in May of 2019, last year, 1 year ago.
The Obama Justice Department was spying on the Trump campaign. The question is, was there a proper predicate? Was there probable cause to believe that there was a conspiracy or collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia? So that's the question that has to be answered. Trey Gowdy and I think, were the only two Republicans that had the opportunity to see that probable cause evidence, to see all of those FISA applications in unredacted form. And they centered around something called the Steele dossier, which was entirely false and fake. And now Bob Mueller says it was false and fake. Because remember, the Steele dossier said that Carter Page was at the center of a well-developed conspiracy between the Trump campaign and the Russian government. Carter Page wasn't charged. He was never going to be charged. The idea that he was a Russian agent was a joke. So the folks at the Justice Department, like Jim Comey and Andy McCabe and the folks at Sally Yates and others that verified this, they've got some explaining to do.
And we now know, with some of the evidence that we're getting, there was absolutely no basis. And Roxanne, in just a minute, is going to have some of that to share with you. But I just want to make one quick point, and that is beware Trey Gowdy. Beware Trey Gowdy, because he had access to all of the information. And even Matt Gaetz, our representative from up in the Panhandle here in the state of Florida, Representative Matt Gaetz, is basically saying beware of Trey Gowdy. And he posted on his Twitter something that Trey Gowdy said, where Trey Gowdy said that he's seen it, and the FBI did everything properly, and it wasn't about trying to get the president, right? And he said it's pretty hard to understand that quote in light of what we now know. But I also want you to hear something that Matt Gaetz said about Trey Gowdy, and then I'm going to play a quick clip from Trey Gowdy, then I'm going to turn it over. But let me just show you what Matt Gaetz had to say about why there haven't even been any arrests or subpoenas to date. Listen to this.
The number one question I get asked from Americans is why no one has gone to jail and been held accountable. Unfortunately, when Nunes and Meadows and Jordan and I wanted subpoena power, it was Paul Ryan and Trey Gowdy that wouldn't give us that subpoena power. Democrats sent out hundreds of subpoenas when we had control and could have run this to ground in 2017. We didn't send out a single subpoena, not one, and that's a failure of our Republican leadership.
Now listen to Hannity jumping in there. He made a mistake. He didn't make a mistake. This is on purpose. Listen to what Trey Gowdy had to say, because Sidney Powell's pointing the finger, and believe me, the buck stops here with President Obama. Reference back to the January 5th meeting where they set this up and what Obama knew. Remember, according to the text messages between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, the White House POTUS wants to know everything we're doing. This was run out of the White House. This was run by President Obama, by the book. Just the book was Rules for Radicals, and they didn't tell you that part. Now listen to Trey Gowdy just over the weekend, what he had to say, because this tells the tale of the tape as far as I'm concerned.
Does this go all the way up to President Obama in your view? That's what Sidney Powell just told us 2 minutes ago.
You know, Maria, I'm going to defer to her. For sure, he knew about it, but I would caution Republicans. You've got Comey, Brennan, Clapper, McCabe, Strzok. If that's not enough for the executive branch to be embarrassed, I mean, it doesn't have to go all the way up to the president.
Come on, guys. It doesn't have to go that high. We know he knew about it. We know he's involved, but that's got to be enough. You got to stop there. Don't let it go all the way to President Obama. Now, why is Trey Gowdy making that? And is it purple tie? You know, the guy only wears purple ties. You think there's a message there? I'm not red. I'm not blue. I'm purple. I'm a mix of red and blue. Yeah, he's a uniparty. He's an insider. He's deep state, whatever you want to call him. He's towing the line for the people that don't want justice to come to where it really belongs. They don't want the buck to stop on the president's desk where it really belongs.
All right, let's talk about another tendril of this story. And Morgan, I'd like to give you a lot of credit when you scoop even national news organizations. Months ago, we had George Papadopoulos on the Morgan Streetman Show. Seems much of what he told us would happen back then is happening now. We're finding out that it is true. And we'll see even more to come as the Spygate scandal is cracked open further. So what happened? You had Bob Mueller and his cronies go after George Papadopoulos for, according to the Mueller report, his false statements impeding the FBI's investigation into Joseph Misfit. Okay, so he said he believed Joseph Misfit, George said this, was part of the deep state and was trying to set him up. Some people might say, well, that sounds crazy. Okay, let's look at what happened. Misfit was interviewed by the FBI. Oh, but there was no FBI 302 to go along with his interview, which is a procedural sort of thing, but it gets a little bit more fishy. So now we have everyone else being indicted for lying to the FBI, but for some reason, Misfit was protected. We're going to get into further into his ties in just a moment, but I want you to hear what Representative Jim Jordan called this situation out to Bob Mueller in front of Congress in the summer of 2019, and Mueller wouldn't answer why.
Director, the FBI interviewed Joseph Mifsud on February 10th, 2017. In that interview, Mr. Mifsud lied. You point this out on page 193, volume 1. Mifsud denied. Mifsud also falsely stated. In addition, Mifsud omitted. 3 times he lied to the FBI, yet you didn't charge him with the crime.
Excuse me, did you say one? I'm sorry, did you say 193?
Volume 1, 193. He lied 3 times. You pointed out in the report. Why didn't you charge him with the crime?
I can't get into internal deliberations with regard who would or would not be
charge a lot of other people for making false statements. Let's remember this. In 2016, the FBI did something they probably haven't done before. They spied on 2 American citizens associated with a presidential campaign, George Papadopoulos and Carter Page.
Okay, so we hear that. And then you also have to understand there's a whole nother layer of the Mifsud going missing, muddying the waters in that regard. Let's talk about who he's tied to. He was seen out dining with Hillary Clinton and some socialist Italian representatives. Now that's, okay, what, people can't have dinner together? Let's take it a step further. Last week, due to the release of the House Intel transcripts, we now know that Mifsud was a member of the Clinton Foundation. So things go a lot deeper, pardon the expression, than we would actually hope to believe, or we would believe as citizens. We wouldn't hope that there were these link-ups of people that, you know, the fact that he's part of that Hillary Clinton Foundation, the fact that the FBI gave him all these breaks, it's all looking really fishy at this point.
Well, there are so many necks and heads on this Hydra, so many tentacles coming out from it. I mean, they were really working all the angles, weren't they? Mm-hmm. Because some of what you're talking about just now, remember what Bill Barr said. They're looking at what happened both before the election and after the election. Some of what you're talking about right now was happening all before the election. It was happening in early and mid 2016, and then it really jumped into gear around August 2016, around that time when they opened and started actively pursuing the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. But remember, they were operating before they even had an open investigation, because we know they had put Mifsud on Papadopoulos, and they had put Halper on a whole bunch of people, including Papadopoulos and Carter Page. Halper was that, got to put quotes around professor at Cambridge, because he's really just a longtime intelligence asset. Oh, and by the way, it's come out that he was charged and pled guilty to possession of crack cocaine in Virginia in the mid-1990s. So
wait, who was this?
This is Stefan Halper, the walrus,
right.
the big, heavy-set guy. I mean,
yes.
I didn't know crack cocaine addicts could get that heavy. I mean, I guess Wolf of Wall Street, whatever. Anyway, I mean, you would think. But anyway, maybe he cleaned himself up. Maybe it's all
and Papadopoulos told us about meeting with him. Yeah,
of course. Yeah, right. And how he was really, I mean, he sounds like just a jewel of a guy. And I say that facetiously. He sounds like a real jerk. But remember, he was the one that met with Papadopoulos with Azra Turk. Mm-hmm. So the tentacles coming off of this Hydra go so many different directions. They were going to make sure that they got dirt on President Trump. Now, here's the interesting thing. All of this was being done to set up the basis, the false basis, to apply for that FISA warrant, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act warrant, which is where they say, hey, this person's an agent of a foreign government. Carter Page is an agent of a foreign government. George Papadopoulos is an agent of a foreign government. And therefore, we need to be able to listen into their communications and remember the two-hop rule. Anybody that they talk to or talks to them, and anybody that those people talk to or talks to them. I mean, you're talking thousands of people, maybe tens or hundreds of thousands of people when you get to the two-hop rule.
We learned about the two-hop rule now with coronavirus.
Yeah, right. So all of this is going on for purposes of going through President Trump and at the time candidate Trump's communications. Now, you and I know if they would have found anything in those communications, that would have been leaked. They leak like a sieve when it's anything that benefits their side of things, including Jim Comey leaking information. Remember, leaked his memos to his friend Daniel Richman, who would leak them to the New York Times. So, because in his own words, he knew he could get a special counsel appointed. That special counsel, Bob Mueller, was appointed in May of 2017 and investigated for 2 years, something that we already knew by May of 2017 was false. They had nothing. They knew it. They played pretend, and they mobilized the full surveillance and law enforcement power of the federal government against candidate and then President Trump and the members of his administration. And that's a crime, and they ought to be prosecuted for it. Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.